I think three things, and I'll just hit them very quickly. The defense is really feeling their oats and really of a belief that they have made the proper strides to be respectable again and even throw around that term silver bullets that they like to throw around. They think that they're going to have that moniker back. I looked up the numbers today. They gave up on average 25.5 points and 403 yards per game last year, which I think are both records in the wrong direction in the modern era of Ohio State football. There may have been a defense in the late 80s that approached some of those numbers, but otherwise last year was pretty bad. But they think they're back. That's one. Two, it sounds like Demario McCall's the backup running back. Master Teague is still not 100%, and he was expected to be that guy. And then Marcus Crowley, true freshman, is currently number 3 on that list. So that was the second thing I learned. And the third thing I learned is that Al Washington, the linebackers coach, referred to much embattled middle linebacker Tough Borland as a, quote, stud. And come in and watch the video with me. He gets to the freaking ball. Those were the things that Al Washington was basically saying today, the new linebackers coach, who, as I've said, week in and week out, didn't recruit him, has no special allegiance to Tough Borland or Pete Werner, and he and Greg Madison and Jeff Hafley are only going to play the best players, and it sounds like Tough Borland has won his way in there, although he also said Baron Browning and Taraja Mitchell are also doing an outstanding job at middle linebacker as well, and that they're all going to play. But if you believe that Al Washington shares your viewpoint on Tough Borland, you are sadly mistaken. So those are probably the big three that I came away with, at least today.
Yeah, the smart aleck in me would think that maybe Al Washington's game study has been relegated to simply the Tulane game or something of that.
That's pretty good.
Tony, what you got? Whoa.
Well, I would add the Al Washington stuff is mostly a clean slate. Didn't really go back and look too much at last year because he wanted to have new eyes on how these guys have played. And really, Al Washington is not the only guy singing Tough Borland's praises. The teammates love him. You know, they voted him a captain, and again, we'll vote him a captain again next year. He'll be a 3-time captain. One of the other things that we've learned is Josh Proctor, sophomore safety, free safety, is probably the maybe the best playmaker in the defense, causing a lot of interceptions, coming away with big plays. Has received comparisons to Malik Hooker and to Jalen Ramsey in the last week, which are two pretty significant, comparisons. And if he's even a fraction of that, half as good as that, then the Buckeyes have something. And he may not even be a significant portion of this defense this year, but it won't be too long before he is.
Kevin, what caught your ear this week?
Well, to stick with the Al Washington side of things, he said that Pete Werner was a warrior. So we have a stud and we have a warrior. So it sounds like he's very high on the linebacker position. I had a chance to talk to Brendan White yesterday, and he talked some about the bullet position, and there's going to be a lot of interchangeability between he and Pete Werner. And Al Washington corroborated on that. And, I think a lot of it's just going to depend on if it's going to be more of a run first or pass first type of attack that they're going against, who's going to be out there. And the question was asked to Brendan White, who played very well toward the tail end of last season and became a starter, that he very well could not be a starter now in certain situations if Werner's out there. And, Brendan White said all the right things at that point. I'm just here to make plays. I'm just here to win games, do things for the team. So it'll be interesting to see the dynamic at the at the linebacker position. And Demario McCall, just to kind of dovetail off of what Steve said, he was asked about his health and how healthy he is. And he was like, he's as healthy as he's been. He's up to 196 pounds. Asked how tall he was. He blew right past that one. Did not want to necessarily get into that. Had a nice big grin on his face, laughed about it. He said he's feeling good, though.
Claire, have you seen my countdown clock?
Have I seen your countdown clock? No. How did I miss it?
My
I'm a
countdown
MarkRogersTV
clock here.
subscriber.
So somebody had suggested that I get a
Oh, I see.
countdown clock to count toward the season. And I said, I don't have time. I'm not looking through a bunch of links going on. Boom. The money showed up, and somebody that watches me on a regular basis, Justin Firm, just wanted to make sure that I had a countdown clock. So we are just 2 days, 22 hours plus away from any kind of football. That would be Miami and Florida playing in Orlando. Tack on a week. Of course, you got, so we're looking at, about 9 days and change to the Ohio State game against FAU. So it's coming, Claire.
It is. I want to make sure that you've self-reported that gift to the NCAA. I don't want you to get in any kind of trouble. Maybe. So this week, I would say, I think it's interesting. A lot of people will have these ideas about naming captains and why so-and-so deserved it and maybe why they think they didn't. But I think with any team, when there's transition, it couldn't hurt where there's not a whole lot of really just obvious leadership on this team. I think some guys are natural leaders on this team, and sometimes it's obvious to the outside world who the leaders are. And then there are some guys on this team that maybe they needed the captain label to step into that leadership role. So I'm definitely interested to see who's going to step into it. Not all of these captains are necessarily starters. CJ Saunders got voted as a captain, and he's an exceptional guy on and off the field, I guess, and is always willing to help out. He's Hardline's go-to guy. And I have a soft spot for CJ Saunders because he's a Dublin, Ohio kid, and he does work. He's definitely a talented athlete. He just needs some groceries in him, I think, and maybe hit the weight room with me. But yeah.
And you could help with that, Claire.
I can help with that. You know all about that. Yeah. So it's definitely interesting to see kind of the dynamic and the dichotomy of the different players who were actually voted as captain. And then kind of what Kevin was talking about. I think it was you, Kevin, that was talking about the situational kind of the back and forth with that bullet position with Brennan White and the times that he kind of went pretty in depth on when they would be using that bullet position, kind of like a 2 tight end look. And then they kind of talked to Jason Wentz about it. So it was very curious. I think we got a little further a look into that maybe than we thought we could.
Cheryl Jensen makes a great point here. We need more Buckeyes fans in here for Mark. Well, not for me, for all of us. You talk about a panel. This panel that we put together each and every week, I will put it up against any. When you talk about these, I'll exclude myself, 4 voices talking Ohio State football each and every week. We had 450 on the line at one point with Miami, and that will spring to about 7,000 views. Steve Hellwagon has done a tremendous job in helping us promote this show by posting it on Bucknuts as well. So it will tap out in the 2,000 to 3,000 range, but we got 43 online right now. So everybody watching right now, the way you can help us is to go out there and say, hey, family, friends, social media acquaintances, we're here every Wednesday night at 9 o'clock Eastern time.